All right. Well, Cara, thank you so much for hopping on. I'm super excited to have you here.
I'm excited to just get together and chat tonight. I love talking to you, so I'm sure this is going to be really fun.
I know. I feel like every time we talk, it just goes on and on and on, and we lose track of time, which is funny that that's what we're talking about today is managing time, but it's so true. Like, I feel like the last time you and I talked, it was 2 hours just flew by or something.
Yeah, we got on for a podcast episode for my show and then realized how much we actually have in common. And I think it was like all of a sudden 11 p.m. I'm like, oh, it's really late.
I know. My husband was looking out the window like, when is this going to wrap up? When is this going to be done? So anyhow, but I'm excited to have you on today and talk all about time and how we can manage our time, because I think so many moms struggle with time 100%. It's one of those things that's like one of the number one reasons that I hear moms say they can't do certain things, or they're feeling like they constantly struggle with time or any of that nature. So I'm excited to dig in and figure out all your time hacks.
Yeah, I have a lot of them. I always have been like a naturally organized person, and I thought I was really good at managing my time until I became a mom. And then I realized that the strategies I used when I was teaching, while some of them are great and can work with your kids, they don't all work in the mom setting. And I think there's a lot of stuff out there for time management and for productivity that doesn't fit the mom lens, because our lives are different. I remember talking to one of the women in my course, and she said that she was learning from somebody else, and they were like, when you have 2 hours blocked together to do this project, and she's like, 2 hours? Like, that's it. Like, people think, oh yeah, you have all this time to get things done. But as a mom, our time just needs to be structured differently because kids are super unpredictable.
100%. Yep. It's like you get a 10-minute window, not a 2-hour window.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm excited. And I know you said that you were kind of already an organized person and you've already alluded to having kids. Why don't you just share a little bit about that? Like, what does your family look like? Why has time become so important for you? And how did you kind of figure that out? Like how time is so different?
Sure. Yeah. I'm a mom of three. So I have a 2, a 4, and a 13-year-old. And I am a former school teacher turned accidental entrepreneur is kind of what I call it, because I loved teaching. It was what I wanted to do since I was in the 2nd grade. But if anyone else out there is a teacher, you know that it becomes so challenging to, quote, balance our actual personal lives and our teaching career. And so around year 7, I started to feel this itch that I was losing myself. I was getting really anxious every time I had to go into work. I was working at a high performance charter school. So the kids went to school 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and every other Saturday. And so I was there 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. I went in on Sundays to make my copies for the week. I mean, it was super intense. And on top of that, I was on the track for administration. So I remember that summer I was the principal at our summer school program. And the last day of summer school, it overlapped with the first day of regular school for teachers. And I came home, I told my husband, I was like, I'm done. I was like, I cannot do it anymore. I am crying on the way into work. I feel like I don't even know who I am anymore. And I just don't think I can do it. And he's a numbers guy. And he said, okay, well, this is how much you need to make. So let's figure it out. And I thankfully had already gotten started with network marketing, but it was kind of a hobby for me. I was doing it because it was fun and I liked the products, but I really never planned on making it an actual career until I realized that it could be kind of an avenue for me to make income so that I could maybe leave teaching. And I hate the word hustle, but I did it. That year I hustled because I knew that I was slowly losing myself in the teaching profession. So at the end of my 8th year teaching, I was able to, quote, retire, as they say, which I think is silly, but I left teaching and I became a full-time network marketing entrepreneur. And I did that for, I guess, 3 years full-time, and I absolutely loved it. But I realized that I was doing the exact same thing in network marketing that I was doing in teaching. I was working 40 to 60 hours a week. I was hustling at like nobody's business. I still wasn't seeing my family like I wanted to. And I had kind of lost my passion. It was a fitness business and I loved it. I'd lost weight with it. It's still something I use. But I felt God say to me, like, maybe we go in a different direction. Maybe there's a way you can help other moms. And let me tell you, it was really scary. I had built a 6-figure business. Like, it was there for me. I replaced my teaching income. And I remember being 2 weeks postpartum with my son, sitting there reaching over the boppy pillow, nursing him at 3 a.m, building a website for a brand new business that I started from scratch, and kind of left my network marketing as behind as you leave something with residual income. I still make a paycheck from it, so it's nice, because of the team I'd built. But I left that to follow this other dream in my heart, which was to help overwhelmed moms develop routines. Because at this point, my daughter, she was 2.5, my stepson, so he was 11, and I had this newborn baby. And I realized that I was able to, with all of the things I had going on, grow this network marketing business. And I thought, I can help other moms figure out how they can create time pockets in their day to go after their own goals. Because as moms, we put ourselves last. And it's this sad narrative that lives out there that we don't deserve the time. We don't deserve to work on our goals because of whatever belief system or society or limiting belief that, is ingrained in us. So I decided that I would help moms get their lives together. And that first year, it was a whole mess. I have recipes on my site. I cannot cook. So I don't know what I was doing the first year. I thought, what can I do to help moms? And after a year of messing around with it, I finally got the right mentor and figured out my thing, which was helping moms develop goals and time management strategies without being overwhelmed, so that they can then in turn go after their own goals. And since then, I've started the Purpose Driven Mom, which is my podcast and my site, and recently ventured into helping mompreneurs now create systems so that they can go after their goals. Because after working with moms for 1.5 years on productivity, they were like, hey, we want to go after our goals, help us get there. And so now we've kind of, navigated into this world of helping mompreneurs create systems to do the same. So I'm just really passionate about it, because as someone who's been there, I know that spark you feel when you find something that you're passionate about, you love to do, but also I know what it's like to not create time in your day for you, and how key it is that we put ourselves in front of all of the to-dos that get thrown on our plates.
Yep. And I do love that you kind of talked about the fact that, you were able to do certain things. Like, you were able to leave your job, which is people's dream come true, right? Like, they want to be able to leave their job and stay home, but yet how that turned into sort of a hustle as well. And then also, I feel like it's something when we look at that sort of a lifestyle and we see all of what you're able to do and you're getting so much done, that sometimes we think that that is the golden child, right? That if we can get all of this stuff totally crammed in, that's the sweet spot. But for me, what I found, it's a lot of eliminating those things that are unimportant and not focusing on those, and focusing on those things that are most important, and kind of realigning to that. But I'm sure that you have, and I know you have your 3 kind of big pillars when it comes to time management and stuff like that. But what are some of those things for you?
Before I talk about that, I do want to add to what you said, because that really is something that I struggled with, because for my entire life, I thought success meant you stayed later at work. Success meant you burnt out. Success, if I wasn't exhausted by the Friday, I felt like I was doing something wrong. And that transferred into motherhood for me. And I had to have a narrative there, because I thought, well, I've always been a hard worker. I've always just hustled. And so I literally don't know how to chill, but it was really becoming a detriment, because in motherhood, you have to be flexible. You have to learn how to chill a little bit, and you will burn out. And what I find is moms will put so many goals on their plates. That's one mistake I see moms making all the time, is they're putting too many goals. We're always rushing. We're rushing to achieve this goal and achieve that goal. And I'm driven, and I think intentionality is key. But when you don't stop to enjoy the journey along the way with whatever your goal is, it's then what? You're always goal chasing, right? You train for a half marathon, and you get to the end and you get your medal and your t-shirt. I'm from Philly, so we get a soft pretzel and we keep it pushing, right? You do your next goal. But what about all the miles you ran? What about all those wins, all those times you showed up for yourself? When you're always constantly goal chasing and piling and piling and piling it on, you're, one, not enjoying it at all, but 2, you're also setting yourself up for failure, because you're never going to be able to hit this high bar for yourself. And again, I'm not saying I think that we as moms should not level up. I'm saying we need to be very intentional about how we go after our goals, so that if we have a day that the kid throws up on you, or somebody's sick and things get thrown off, you're not like, oh, I'm such a failure. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this. I knew that I wouldn't be successful. Maybe you set yourself up for that. And then you get into self-sabotage. where
Yeah.
you're like, well, I'm not going to bother trying, because if I don't bother trying this half marathon goal, if I don't bother saying I'm going to declutter my basement, if I'm not going to go after this business goal, well, I can't fail at it. And then I'm not going to feel bad about failing. And I know if you're listening, you're probably like, ooh, she's talking to me, because I've been there, and it's
Yeah.
true. Like, it's so true. So I think when it comes to managing your time and going after your goals, we want to be realistic, but intentional about growth
Mm-hmm.
at the same time. It's not about piling and putting everything on our plate. It's about picking what makes the most sense for this season, and then making an intentional plan to kind of go after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't know, I'd never heard the phrase YOLO. Have you heard that?
Yes.
Okay.
I,
Well,
I
I
was a high
felt
school teacher, so
oh,
yes, YOLO.
okay. Somebody recently I was talking about, I was like, gosh, my whole life, I feel like I was raised like thinking I want to be debt free and I want to be like thinking smart about my money and all this stuff. And then the other day I was like, gosh, if by the time I actually have the money to go have fun or to do things or to take time off or to go, whatever, like by the time I have that money, I'm not going to want to do it anymore. And somebody was like, YOLO. And I was like, YOLO, what does that mean? And they're like, you only live once. And I was like, oh yeah, that like, but kind of putting that into perspective of like, you really do only live once. So what are those goals that are most important to you that matter the most, and focus on those? Like, we could be doing a million different things at one time, but like what is going to make the most impact if you get to the end of your life and you're 80 years old and you're looking back and you're like, gosh, I spent so many hours folding laundry and doing the dishes, but is that what's really going to matter? So anyhow, we kind of went on a
Yeah.
little bit of a tangent there, but
No, but I'm going to connect it all, because the thing is, there's this glorification of busy that
yeah.
that makes us feel important. But let's be real, like when you're busy and when you have a full schedule, it does not mean that you're successful or happier. It means you have more things written down in your planner. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
all it actually means. But and especially as I'm Enneagram 3, like I love achievement. Like it's a drug for me. I'm like, all right, I'm doing this, but I have to check myself and say, does this matter right now in this season? And is this like setting myself up for success, like in the long term? And when I
Mm-hmm.
talk to moms about crafting goals, and more importantly, crafting time and an action plan, which I'd love to talk about, is like how to make an action plan for your goals. I always ask them, like, what is going to be a catalyst for some of your other goals, and also like what just makes sense for you right now. You
Yeah.
don't have to say, I'm going to do my decluttering goal and my cleaning goal and my scrapping goal in the same month. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. But when you kind of look at things in like a quarterly or a yearly theme, that's what I really like to do. I pick themes for my months by quarter. It's not like, oh, I'm never going to get to it, right? Like we can talk
Mm-hmm.
declutter, right? So say I'm like, oh, I know I should declutter. It's something important to me, but I'm working on this busy work project. And so right now, decluttering is not going to be my goal, but I'm going to work on it next month. And I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving up on my dream. I'm not saying I'm giving up on my goal. And then I can like work on my work project or my scrapbooking or my knitting or whatever your goal is with ease, instead of guilt of saying,
Yeah.
oh, I know I need to declutter. Oh, I should be doing this. It's okay. Like I'm going to get to it next month. It's not like I'm saying I'm never doing it. And then,
Yeah.
so when moms look at their goals, I always recommend you make these 12-month, but then really narrow it down into these 3-month plans where you're making themes for what you want your goals to be. Because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if not, I could work on my morning routine for like a whole year because it won't ever be perfect, right? I mean, and I did this. I made this mistake where I was constantly trying to improve my morning routine and it took me about 6 months till I realized I haven't added any other routines in that I was working on. I was constantly working on one, but you can have parallel routines and parallel goals. But I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of it comes down to picking your season, but then it also comes down to figuring out how to manage and create a schedule or a routine so that you have the time to actually work on the goals,
Yeah.
instead of just arbitrarily being like, I'm going to work on this next month. It's like, cool, but let's make a plan so that when next month comes, you're like, boom, I'm going to do this.
So, and I love that 100%. And I agree. I think when we take on so many, I think that's what we do is like, as women, we're like, we want to do everything. And I was actually talking to somebody the other day and I was like, gosh, I've gained 20 pounds this year. And I think because it has not been my primary focus, like in order to eat well and exercise every day and whatever, it just hasn't, I mean, I'm like not unhealthy. I'm not eating out junk food and whatever. It is not my primary focus like it was in the past or where it may be in the future. Like, and I'm okay with that. Like right now, I just know like intentionally I've shifted my focus to somewhere else. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, we just like focus on, like a million different things at one time instead of focusing on one. But a big question that I hear from my audience and my people a lot is the motivation. So like, even when you've picked that one goal and like this is, whether it be, weight loss or working out or morning routine or decluttering or, not yelling at your kids or like whatever that goal is, that motivation can be really hard. And that's one of the questions I hear a lot. And I have an opinion about motivation, but I'm curious to hear what yours is and what your stance on like finding that momentum and finding that motivation when it's hard sometimes.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that because I think that, what's the saying? It's the start that stops us. And we get so overwhelmed with this like big goal and this big picture. And I actually love incentives and like external motivation. And I tell people like, sometimes we need external motivators while our internal muscle of motivation grows, because it's hard to motivate yourself to do something. And I remember even when I was a teacher, I taught elementary school for 1 year and then I wound up in high school and I loved it. Taught seniors. And it was so much fun. But I went in with some of the same strategies used in elementary school. And I was like, these kids they're gonna eat me alive, right? And like, I'm like, this is gonna happen. But guess what? I had these 19-year-old kids raising their hand because they wanted a raffle ticket so they could pick the song during our journal on Friday or get a good phone call home, right? We have to find what motivates people. And I think we forget the things that we would do for our kids, like make yourself a sticker chart, like pick yourself something. So I'm doing a goal right now and I'm working on my eating because I as well like haven't been focusing on it. And so I told myself if I hit my nutrition goals at the end of the week, I was going to like put $20 aside because I really want to get my eyebrows microbladed, but it's like $600 or something. Like it's such a want that it's ridiculous, but I'm like, I really want to work for this. So while I'm working on growing my own motivation, I'm rewarding myself, with that. And I think that's okay. But I think there's two things you need when you're kind of motivating yourself. One is like, yes, coming up with some sort of system to reward yourself. The second is accountability and community, because 100%. We cannot do everything together. Yep. You need to enroll your family in your vision. You need to enroll your partner. You need to find groups of friends and people on the internet that are doing the same things, because when you have those people, they will push you. They will drive you. Jim Rohn says it, right? You're the average of the 5 people you're around. Yep. And if you're around people who are working towards goals, you're going to start getting that bug in your ear. You're going to start being like, I want to do it. Because I was telling some of the ladies in my membership the other day, like, people don't actually sit around and talk about goals. Like, we're weird that we do this. And it seems normal to me because it's been ingrained in my head for the past 10 years that I've been in the personal growth world. But I'm telling these ladies, I'm like, when's the last time you sat with your girlfriend and was like, what's a dream you're working on? You got an action plan? Like, we don't do it. And I was like, and we're sitting here in this community where that's what we do in the community is goals and routines and accountability. And I was like, so I want to applaud you. Like, you need to find a community of people doing that. So those two things, I think, are two of the big like external motivators, but there's an internal one that I think we miss, and that's how we grow our confidence. Because when you're going and working to achieve a goal, creating a routine, whatever it is, one of the reasons I notice women struggle is because, again, they put too much on at once. And I call it the Monday mentality. So, we're just talking about weight, but like you start dieting, you're like, I'm going to work out for 3 hours a day and I'm like never going to look at chocolate and it's going to, I'm going to do it. And by Wednesday, you're like, peace, I'm going to try it again on Monday. And Monday comes, and Monday comes, and Monday comes. The Monday mentality happens when we don't create an action plan that is going to allow us to grow our confidence that we can achieve things. Because there's a reason that some of the same goals, some of the same routines, they keep popping up on your resolution list. They keep coming to your vision board. The reason is because you have tried them and not succeeded. And so if you're trying to, like, I've gone through and tried to declutter my house like a million times and nothing ever sticks and I have to do it again, right? Or I've tried to work on this business thing or run a half marathon and I haven't succeeded at it yet. So my confidence, whether I like can consciously like admit like, oh, I'm struggling because I'm not feeling confident, that's what happens. Like our confidence is taken hits because we feel like we've repeatedly failed. So what I recommend women do is when you make goals is you kind of scaffold them back and you start getting really good at something instead of trying to do 12 things at once and become like mediocre or don't do them at all or just set yourself up to fail. And so that's where I recommend moms use my habit stacking technique, because it allows you to build confidence and it also allows you to take some of the emotion out and look at data. Like I love numbers, I love data, and we're not doing like algebra or anything complicated here, but simple math can help you see that you're successful. And I'd love to give some examples of this, if that's cool.
Go for it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's go to the morning routine, because I know that's one a lot of us like really want, because I always joke that when I wake up like before my kids, I am like Tafiti from Moana. You know, I'm like the praises, I'm like whatever. And then if my kids wake up with me or you know, they wake me up, I am like Te Kā. I'm like, no, we're not doing this today, right?
I might steal that. That's really good.
It's true, because it's like that's my only quiet in the morning. Like I get up, my feet hit the floor, not even. Somebody's pulling my eyelids up and I gotta go. And so I think a morning routine is important. I will say I actually think the evening routine is more important than the morning routine, but we're going to start with the morning routine because I just think the evening routine sets us up for success. But I want to do morning routines for this example. So what I recommend you do is you pick a routine that you want to work on: evening, morning, afternoon, reading, whatever it is, exercise, whatever. And you break it up into manageable tasks and chunks. I always use 4 because there's 4 weeks in a year, but you could literally make it 12 if you wanted to work on it for the entire quarter. And instead of doing everything that first week, you just do one thing and you track it. So if you said my morning routine is kind of a mess right now, and I want to start getting up earlier and doing things, my question to you would be, what would your end goal look like? And start with the end in mind. So if you could make up an ideal time block for your morning routine, and I do this with every time block in my day, I always start with the end in mind. What's the ideal? Like, what's the vision? Because if you don't know where you're going, when the alarm goes off, it's easy to hit snooze. When you have 3 days off, it's easy to quit till the next week. You need to enroll yourself in that vision, and you do it by starting with the end in mind. Okay, so you break down, you say, what do I want to do? So my perfect morning routine would be getting up and I would have like quiet time in the Bible and some prayer. Maybe I would do a meditation. I would start a load of laundry. And then I would have like 20 minutes to, I don't know, like watch a business personal growth, right? So say those are my 4 things that I'd love to do to start my morning. Instead of trying to do them all at once, especially in the morning, because the morning is hard, because in order to do it, you have to wake up earlier. And I'm going to tell you how I have trained myself to become a morning person in a second. But you say, let's just do one. So if all I'm doing in the morning is getting up and I'm reading my Bible for like 5 minutes, that's all I'm going to do that week. Okay. And you track it. Now, I never recommend that people ever say they're going to do anything for 7 days. I always say do 6, because you're just not. You're not going to do it for 7 days. And if you do, you can pat yourself on the back and say, great job. You say, all right, 5 days a week, I'm going to get up and do this. And you track it. You track it for the whole week and you see how you did. Now, when you get to the end of the week, here's where the numbers come in. Basic math. How many days did you do it? I did it 4 out of 5. 4 divided by 5 times 100, that's 80%. And you ask yourself, like, is that a good enough percentage? Yeah, that feels great to me. I'm going to move on. Now, say you only did it 2 out of 5. You can decide then, hey, do I want to work on this for another week to really make it a lifestyle change and maybe get my percentage to 60 or 80%? Or do I want to stack a second thing? If you decide to stack, well, then week 2, you're tracking morning routine and meditation. Week 3, you add the third thing and the fourth thing. This way you're doing it over a period of time. You're using your data. You're not married to the fact that it has to be done in 4 weeks. You're like, we're going to just flow with it and see. And you can celebrate, because I can't tell you how many times in my membership we do Sunday planning together and we check in on our goals on Sunday. And how many times the conversation starts with like, I had a hard week. I had a bad week. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And then I ask them to look at their numbers and they're like, well, I did it 2 out of. Celebrate
Cara,
that.
I lost you. Cara.
You know, and then we can make goals completely data driven. Oh, did I freeze?
Yeah, you were breaking up pretty good.
No, sorry. Oh, I see
Okay,
your chat
I think
now.
you're good. I think you're good.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
No, I don't know what happened. It was just
know,
like
yeah,
all of a sudden you were like, I was like, oh my gosh.
The robot.
Anyhow, you were talking about like when you ask them about checking their goals, when you
okay.
are checking their numbers.
Okay. So one of the things that we do in my membership is we check in on our goals, right, and our numbers each week. And the conversation tends to always be, I didn't do it. I had a hard week. This was tough. I failed. And then I ask them to say, like, hey, look at your numbers. Like, what did you really do? And they'll say, oh, I did it two out of 5 days. And I ask, like, what'd you do last week? 1 out of 5. Let's celebrate the progress, right?
Yeah.
Let's not say, oh, I'm not doing this. Oh, I'm not doing that. And then you can start to see patterns. Then you can start to see where you need to tweak things. Did you try to put too many things on? Did you try to move too fast? This is where it goes back to feeling like we have to rush through everything. If you want to create lifelong actual changes, then trying to do 50 things at once on January 1st or whenever, like, it's not going to be it.
Yeah.
And we can use this to even train ourselves to do pretty much anything. If you want to become a morning person, instead of saying, I wake up at 7 now and I want to wake up at 5, so I'm going to just wake up at 5, don't do that. Wake up 5 minutes earlier. Wake up 10 minutes earlier, and every day track it. Am I doing it? Am I doing it? Am I doing it? And then do it for a while. And then maybe it takes you 3 months, but all of a sudden you're waking up at 5. We'll get there. That's okay. And it sets you up better. And you can use this technique in anything. I had a time where I was like not cool with the amount of screen time we were getting because it was like a lot of screen time. And so I thought, how can we impact this? Because I knew if I came in and was like, we're never watching TV again, right? It's not going to work, right? It's not going to flow. So what I did was I tracked the amount of hours my kids were watching TV in a day or a week. And I was like, all right, this is too much. Where's my end goal? Where do I want us to be? And then I broke it up. I just did basic math. If by the end of the month, if I would love to decrease it by 2 hours a day or something like that, then I know my plan. And then I slowly just started timing it. And then every day it was like 10 minutes less, 10 minutes less, 10 minutes less. Nobody noticed. It's the same thing. My kids are not going to notice if they're getting like 5 minutes less of a show. One, they can't tell time, but two, I'm not like ripping something from them. If you want to like have your kids eat healthier or bring healthier snacks into your house, you can't go in and empty the entire cabinet and be like, all right, we're never doing this again. You just slowly stop buying things.
Yeah.
And by the time you get down to like 4 core snacks, your kids are going to forget that you used to buy Pop-Tarts every week, right?
Yeah.
And that's like exactly what happened in my house. I just stopped buying things slowly, and then they forgot. So if every once in a while I bring home a Pop-Tart, they're like, yo, we used to love Pop-Tarts, right? It becomes exciting. And so you can essentially either break anything into a habit stack or grow anything into a habit stack, depending on how you choose to break it down. And then you work on it parallel. If like week 1, you're working on your first week of your morning routine, and then week 2, you've got 2 things in the morning routine, and you want to add 1 thing in your evening routine, you could do that, right? And you toggle back and forth until you find a rhythm that works for you. You do parallel routines so you're not stuck on your morning routine for 9 months, but it allows you to have flexibility. And then you can pause them and say, all right, we're going to pause the morning routine for a month. I'm going to work on my evening routine, and then I'm going to go back and forth and back and forth. So I think scaffolding it that way allows you to go back to the motivation. It allows you to grow confidence and motivation that you can do things. You don't have to do all of it to feel successful and to feel like you're moving forward. We're often on this like treadmill of goal setting, right? And you feel like you're not going anywhere. But as long as you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's really important too, to look, like you mentioned too, how one goal or one habit is going to impact another one. And so like for me, since quarantine, I've watched way more TV than we've watched ever previously. And so at night I get into this habit of just like watching, and we'll get into a show, and because there's Netflix, you're just like one right after the other, and they lead it so well that you want to watch the next one. And then you find yourself staying up really late. And so for us, like what I found is I had an alarm on my phone that goes off at 9:30 every night saying go to bed, but it wasn't enough. Like I wasn't listening to my alarm. And then that same thing, my 5 o'clock alarm goes off and I don't want to get up in the bed in the morning because I've stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning, And so it's just ironic that this week I decided I wanted to paint our TV stand. And so I took out all the TV stuff. And so for the last couple of days, all of our TV stuff is dismantled. And so at night, there's no TV. And so I realized how much that watching the TV at the end of the night was how much that's impacting my morning. And so when you can focus on one habit that maybe is impacting that other one, it just has this like cascade effect, like rather than looking at just that one habit in total isolation of itself, are there other ones that are impacting that one that maybe would have a bigger impact, I guess, if that makes sense. Like me getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning has to be me going to bed earlier at night. I can't just like get up on 3 hours of sleep. So if it's me going to bed at night, that's the bigger goal. Like I need to focus on that one. What things do I need to do to focus on that one, if that makes sense?
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons I like to teach moms to kind of like do this slow and steady, because you will then in turn do more. And you won't even realize it. Like you're like, oh, look, I got up early enough. I finished my Bible routine, and the kids are still sleeping, or maybe they're not. And you're like, maybe I'll just go throw that laundry in, or maybe I'll just do that. Yeah. And you start to build this confidence, like, wow, look, I'm doing more than I thought I was going to do. And it just starts to happen so naturally because you're gaining momentum and you're just realizing the power of how they're all connected. I think that's also like a really great way to create new habits is to figure out, I love that you said that, like how they're connected, because the bedtime thing, it's huge, right? We are not able to get up early when we're staying up late. And I think that when you start to track and when you start to use data, you again take the emotion out of it, but you also can see patterns. You can also pick up on like, how is this connected? Or wow, I noticed that like for me, like my eating is completely tied to my anxiety, and my anxiety gets a lot worse when I'm eating junky, right? And so for a while, my anxiety was getting bad during COVID. I was like, this is probably just COVID stuff. And then I noticed that I was eating a lot. And then I noticed that I was like having a glass of wine every night that I wasn't doing before, which then caused me to eat before I went to bed. And then I was waking up later. And it's like, you need to start noticing your patterns because they're all connected. But it's also true in the opposite direction, that when you get positive patterns and positive routines and positive habits going, the other stuff will happen. It's the same like with like the healthy habits, same habit stack, right? You're like, oh, week 1, I'm just drinking water. Week 2, I worry about my snacks. Week 3, I exercise. Week 4, I don't eat after dinner, right? So those are your 4. Well, if the first week, all you're focusing on is your water, you're going to find that you're full, or you maybe don't want to eat more. Maybe you want to go exercise. All those things, like, they're so interconnected. But if we don't track to get the motivation going, we don't realize it. And then eventually, again, that internal motivation of like, I'm capable, I'm powerful, I can do these things. And maybe my time is shorter. Maybe I don't have an hour to go to the gym now, but I can walk for 15 minutes or whatever it is. And you start to believe again that you don't have to do everything to make progress. You start to believe again that like, I am making a difference for me by showing up in whatever way makes sense, even if it's tiny, tiny chunks. And then on the days when like the poop hits the fan and you're like, I can't do none of this, you're like, all right, I'm going to do one thing on my tracker, and I did it. And and it's small enough, right? You create these tiny habits in like 5, 10, 15-minute chunks that it's easy enough to do. Because you're like, I'm going to scroll Instagram. I've been on TikTok lately. I'm going to be on TikTok for like 20 minutes, right? Just go put the dishes in the dishwasher. Like, just go do it. But the problem is, it's easy enough to like find that time, but it's easy enough to say, I'm not going to do it. And so my last kind of like motivational tip on getting things done is the use of the timer. It seems super trite and people like laugh at me and they're like, that's so simple. But if you put on a timer, yes, you can do so many things. We do a 15-minute pickup in my house every day. And you will not even believe how fast 15-minute goes, but how much you can get done in 15 minutes. And I'm doing a time inventory right now because my schedule got changed. So this week, actually, I'm like in the midst of a time inventory. And I always recommend that to people who struggle, like, where am I going to find time to do it? Do a time inventory, because often we will overestimate sometimes how long things take us And
Yeah.
then when you see, so I mopped my floor today. I hate mopping the floor. I hate cleaning in general. But I was like, the kids were at camp, and I was like, I'm gonna mop because nobody's gonna step on it for a little bit. And then it rained. My husband came home and stepped right on my floor. I was like,
Always,
of
always.
course he did. But I timed it today because I was like, I just don't want to do it. I kept talking myself out of it. I put on a timer. I put on a podcast because it always makes it go faster. My recommendation is whatever you're doing, put on a podcast in that area. If you're decluttering, go find a decluttering podcast. If you're cleaning, go find a cleaning podcast, because you're going to be motivated. Like if you're, working on a personal thing, find personal growth. It'll motivate you in that way. But I put on a podcast, I put on my timer, and I mopped my entire downstairs in 12 minutes. And I was like, Cara, you could have done this yesterday before you went to bed. You know what I mean? Like you could have. And that is very helpful in doing that frequently, I think, because it allows you to see, one, where you're wasting some time, but also how long something takes. So then if you have a goal of mopping your floors every other day or keeping your house clean, or whatever it is, you can say, hey, this is really only going to take me 12 minutes. So I can put this in my evening routine because it's not going to take me an hour to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that the timer is a great motivator because it also becomes a game. Like in our house, like I'm putting the timer on, we put Disney princess music on, and we're going to do our pickup. And like, we want to beat the songs, and we want to, and it becomes a game. You work a little bit faster. So I threw in some kind of like motivational things to just help people get started on their habits and their routines, because as moms, we get stuck when we don't create an action plan that fits into our lives. And we need those little things to push us along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we've talked about this, but my whole, I have a whole course called Clean in 15, and it is all about that. Like, and I've seen some of my clients have had such drastic changes in their clutter and in their house with just those 15-minute windows. And it's true. People underestimate what you can get done in 15 minutes, but if you have focused 15 minutes and you're making it fun, like you're talking about, and you know that at the end of that 15 minutes, like whatever you got done in that 15 minutes is a win, and you celebrate that, it's huge for sure. For sure. So, I know we chatted about a lot today, and I know that you have so much more information, and we would talk forever, but I know we should wrap it up here. So if people want to get in touch with you or follow you or learn more about all the time hacks that you have, where can they find you?
Yeah, sure. So Instagram is my favorite. I'm always over there. So I'm at a purpose-driven mom on Instagram. And the best place to just hear more tips is the podcast, which is the Purpose-Driven Mom Show. Every Monday I do a 15-minute or less tip. And then I always have some really great guests and interviews just on different ways that you can create routines and systems in your home so that you can make time to go after your own goals.
Love it. Love it. Any other last little thoughts or things you want to leave people with?
I just want to encourage any of the mom out there that's like, I don't even know where to get started. It's been a long time since I've even made a plan, especially, this season where everything feels like up in the air.
Yep.
Just pick one thing and just start.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you're not doing what you see somebody else doing. It's your season, they're your goals, but it's so important to have intentionality, because I would hate for you to get to the end of this year and your life and be like, I don't even know what I did, and then intentionality, it matters even in the baby steps.
100%. I agree. I love it. Well, and I'm sure that we'll probably have to do other things in the future together because we just get along so well and things just seem like they jive. And today we have a hard stop on our time, but if we didn't, this probably would be an hour-long podcast. So
yes, we could do part two.
Anywho, yes. Well, thank you, Cara, so much for hopping on. It was fun. I loved chatting with you. I know that everybody that's listening is going to get something that they can use in helping kind of gain back their time. Because I really think, like you even hit on it, and that we could go back to that same word as intention. It's like when we have intention with our time, we can gain our time back and get so much more time back. So, yes.